Okay, continuing my read on the Elliott Sound Products, you know, basic electronics series, which, by the way, this particular article is this. So, I don't think I covered that in a previous video. But yeah, I wanted to throw my 2 cents worth on resistor power ratings, on top of what he's talking about here. And first, let me say, if you're looking for power resistors, I mean, like, 5, 10 watt, and even 1 watt or 2 watt resistors, you might want to, and you're on a budget, you might want to consider looking at Amazon first. Because I bought lots of resistors from Amazon, including, 1 watters and 2 watters and resistor kits and things like that. They actually have pretty good prices on things, and they seem to be up to snuff as far as I can tell so far. And you can see here, that it's like a 5 watt resistor. Okay, you can get like 25 pieces for $11, and that's certainly comparable to someplace like, you know, Jamico here, which is a good place to buy resistors and especially potentiometers. I mean, you'll get pretty good prices on potentiometers, especially like 3 and 5 watt potentiometers on here. They're a great place to go. The only thing that sucks about Jamico, though, is they do have a minimum order of like 25 bucks or something like that, but they also charge you shipping. And there's no way to get around that. So you expect to pay 10 bucks in shipping. I mean, they don't try to rip you off on shipping, prices and stuff, but you will pay shipping for Jamico. So my advice is make sure you're going to order more than one thing from them. That's why, unfortunately, I still don't do much business with them, just because. I mean, it's the same with Mauser, but Mauser usually the shipping's cheaper, mostly because they have, this is all, Jamico is in California, so, their shipping tends to be expensive to a lot of areas of the country, so, whereas Mauser often has warehouses closer, especially to me. But, they've got some pretty good prices, and you can buy them in single unit quantities, as you can see here. So, and you can also do that from Mauser as well. You can buy Mauser, but they tend to be more expensive on a lot of things like this. Um, but at any rate, there is that caveat, and a lot of times you'll see clearance items, on Jamico. So you can actually find some things at a pretty good price sometimes on here, especially some exotic stuff like semiconductors and so forth sometimes, if you're lucky. Um, but yeah, it's a good place to look. But again, 10 of these, is still 5.50 a piece. Okay, that's pretty good. But 20 of them will be, $11, and 25 of them will be, you know, run you like 13, 14 bucks or whatever. Whereas you, like I said, go to Jamico. Okay, this value resistor, if this happens to be what you want. They obviously have a selection of these, but that can get you to, a pretty good price there. 11 bucks for 25 of them. It's not bad. And then you can easily buy, and this is harder to find at places. You'll pay out the nose even through Jamico a lot of times for a 100 watt resistor, but you can buy 5 of them for 10 bucks. But they do have a, that's a 1 ohm resistor, but they do have a limited selection of them. But again, if you're looking to buy some, it's a good place to look. Now, in particular, if you're looking for like variable resistors, high-powered potentiometers, they got some really good deals on here. Um, uh, so you go here and look at this as a 25 ohm 300 watt pot, wire around, for 16 bucks. Now you got to look at these carefully because it depends on how many windings they use, but you can find some really decent prices on these if you dig around. Make sure they're on Prime. Make sure everything you order is on Prime. I always do. Um, I wouldn't buy them, from one of their oddball vendors that aren't on Prime. But you see, a 200 watt 5 ohm resistor, 35 bucks. That's an excellent deal. I mean, I've got a couple of really large potentiometers like this that I've used for decades for power tests that I bought from Allied Electronics way back when. And not too bad of a price, but I mean these prices are actually pretty good. I mean I would have expected them to go through the roof, um, in this day and age, with inflation and all that crap. But yeah, you can find some pretty good deals on potentiometers, but the selection is limited. You're way better off if you're looking for regular potentiometers. Just, you know, oh my God. Um, yeah, this kind of, it's going off topic, and again, I was trying to resist doing that to try to keep these videos short. But if you're looking for, resistor values like, potentiometers like this that, because again, a lot of the potentiometers you're going to see on Amazon, if they tell you the wattage, are like 1/8 watt or less. So, you might not be too happy. And even here, you got a 1/4 watt pot. But usually, you can find 1/2 watt pots, but, for a decent price. But you can find a lot of 3 watt and 5 watt pots on Jamico here, too, for not, too much money. Trying to find them. I got too many of them. Let's see. Output current. That's interesting. Output voltage. Okay. Product type. Hold on a minute. Let me do some research. Yeah, I didn't intend on covering this topic, so I wanted to do some little research here. Let's look up 5 watt potentiometers. So, like I said, for 5 watt potentiometers, these are a little expensive. Some of them are, but they're not bad price, compared to like Mauser or something. You'll pay out the fucking nose for a 5 watt potentiometer, panel mount potentiometer on Mauser. It looks like Jamico's prices have gone up a little bit from the last time I purchased them, these kind of things here. But the point is that, you can get them in 5 watt or, 2 watt or something like that. And, these are ridiculous. But here you can find some, well, these are the 5 watts because I got that check still. But, the point is that, you can still find some reasonable deals. Jamico is worth looking at if you're looking for things like panel mount potentiometers and knobs, too. They carry some decent prices on knobs for these things, too. So, I mean, again, they're worth looking at, if you're looking at potentiometers. Again, you can find some potentiometers on Amazon, too, but a lot of times you'll have more difficulty. Let's because again, you can find potentiometers like this. Okay, it's a 10 turn, and I think these are like 2 watt or something like that. Because you can buy these a lot cheaper here than a Jamico. Jamico does carry these, but let's see if these assholes tell you what the power rating is. And well, it says 10 watt. Okay, well, I'll have to take your word for that. I didn't think these are rated that high, but yeah, 2 watts is what they're typically rated. So I don't know what the fuck they're talking about 10 watt here. Again, that's the bullshit they do on Amazon. But anyway, these are like 2 watt potentiometers, but trying to find 5 watt potentiometers. Let's see what we can find. Let's see. See, these are actually from Jamico, because Jamico does sell some things on here, although I think it's probably cheaper to buy it from them directly, except you got to pay shipping. But yeah, but their selection of things like this in the greatest. So when you're looking for these types of 5 watt or 3 watt pots or whatever for panel mount. So again, that's from Jamico, but as you saw, you can buy them cheaper from Jamico themselves. And if you're buying enough stuff there, well, that can offset the, the shipping cost. I don't know what wattage these are. Again, they look like they're high wattage, but they probably aren't. They're probably 1/2 watt pots at best. You just, can never go. And oftentimes these potentiometers aren't marked. So if you find them in your junk box, you have no idea what the power rating really is. If you pull them out of old stereo equipment or something, oftentimes you won't know. Sometimes you get lucky and they are marked. See, these say power ratings half watt. That's not what we're looking for. Why does that show up in my fucking search then? But, that's Amazon for you. Doesn't know what 5W means. But at any rate, this isn't as good of a source for things like that. Jamico tends to be a better source, when you're looking for, I trust Jamico's 5 watt, potentiometers to be 5 watt way more than I trust something on Amazon to be 5 watt. When you're talking about these, because again, these things can look, you can find a 10 watt resistor. It looks exactly like a 0.5 watt potentiometer that's panel mount, and you wouldn't know the difference. So, if it's not marked, you don't really know what you have. And I'm not aware of any good way to test it. So, and I didn't really intend on talking about potentiometers at all, but but unfortunately it does bring us to another topic, and I assume this guy is gonna, and I might as well cover it since I've more or less primed you for it. Again, it's still off what I originally wanted to talk about, which is just general resistor power ratings. But when it comes to potentiometers, okay, we were looking at these 5 watt potentiometers, right? For panel mount applications, and this applies too to larger potentiometers. So let me go back here, like these kinds. Now, what I loved about these, when I bought the potentiometers, they actually don't have a wattage rating. Not the ones I bought from Allied anyway. They don't have a wattage rating on them. They typically have had a current rating. Again, I don't know if they do that with these because I've never bought one. But that's how really all potentiometers should be rated. They should all be rated in current. And the reason is because wattage doesn't mean what you think. Wattage only applies to you're applying a potential between one terminal and the other extreme terminal, not to the wiper. So if you want to know what 25 watts is, you need to take what the resistor value is, which is 1,000 ohms, and let me try to do this with a stupid Microsoft calculator so you can see the calculation. I don't know. I rarely use that thing. Shit, where is it? There it is. Okay. I'll probably type all this crap in, maybe. Okay, this is a standard calculator. I guess I don't know if that'll be good enough or not. Well, yeah, it probably should be. Okay. Alright, so you got a resistor of 1,000 ohms, right? And it's 25 watts, so we could use the, I squared R formula, okay? Since we want to know the current that can go through it, right? So, basically 25 watts is what our power equals to. And you got to divide that. It's I squared R. I wish I was showing you the formula. This might be confusing to you, but you divide power by the resistance. So 25 watts divided by 1,000 ohms, and this is a good example, and you'll see why here in a minute. It's only a quarter. It works out to be 0.25, but now I got to take the square root of that. So that equals 158 milliamps. That's the limit of this thing, is 158 milliamps at 25 watts. Now, why that's important is because under no circumstances can you get more than 125 milliamps out of any terminal through this. If you do, you're going to fry the thing. You will, and it's often what people that are new to electronics miss, is that you cannot look at, oh, well, it's rated at 25 watts, so if I put this potentiometer down to 1,000 ohm potentiometer down to 100 ohms, well, I can get 25 watts divided by 100, 100, and yeah, okay, yeah, I can draw a lot of current from that. No, you can't. It can't be any more than 158 milliamps, no matter what you set this. Because, see, every time you make an adjustment, like if this were set at full range, right now it's set at half range, you can see where the wiper is. Well, even at that, you can't draw any more than 1.58 amps out, or 0.158 amps out of this. 158 milliamps. You can't. It doesn't matter what resistance it is. That's why I say all potentiometers should be rated, because they all work this way, not just power potentiometers. But it's easier to see with this because you can see what the internal structure of all potentiometers kind of looks like, at least all single turn pots. But and if you were to calculate it, calculate the voltage across it, now we know it's 158 milliamps is our maximum current. Okay, so E equals IR. So let's multiply that times 1,000. All right, so you'd have to put 158 volts across this in order to do it. Now this is probably rated at 150, way over 158 volts. Oh, and by the way, look at the wire spacing on this. That means you're going to get really coarse. These stupid assholes don't have a damn magnifying function. I hate when these vendors do that, But anyway, they don't have a little magnifying glass that pops out on any of theirs. I usually try to avoid doing business with vendors just because that's bullshit. But let me zoom in. But you can see, you got a wiper here, right? Okay, and that's shorting across these windings. Well, the coarser these windings are, the more spread out they are, the less resolution you can get. So, on a power resistor like this that's wire round, you're only going to get, you can count the number of terms, right, and divide it by 1,000 in our case, and this is probably like, let's say 100 turns. Okay, so what that means is that you can get only like 10 ohm increments out of the thing. And it may be a little dodgy too as you adjust the, change the resistance values. It might jump around a lot as you're doing it. It probably won't be as smooth as you might like. But the point is that the actual resistance you're going to get out of one of these, because it's a wire round resistor, is directly dependent on how many turns of wire you got to short across. So, every little wire is a step change in resistance. So you can literally count the number of wires here and divide it into 1,000 in this case, or 10 ohms or whatever you want, to get some idea of the resolution. Here, obviously, they don't take a picture of their wiring because they're ashamed of it. So, that's it's how these guys work. So that's, if you're buying a potentiometer like this, take that into account. Be sure to look at the number of windings, because the big resistors I bought from Allied, they have a lot of windings on them, so you got a lot of resolution. But I haven't seen too many of these on Amazon that have high resolution. But again, a lot of times you don't need it if you're doing load testing on power supplies or something. But that's just something to take into account as well. At any rate, I'm off topic again. Let's see. But yeah, back to this 1,000 ohm resistor. So I mean, it's 158 volts, to get up there. Now if we calculate for a 10 ohm resistor, we can go through. Oh no! Damn it! No. Okay. God, I hate Microsoft. Anyway, shit like that happens all the fucking time. Okay, but let's do the same I squared R, with 25 watts as an example, and but this time do it for 10 ohms. No, I didn't mean to hit a percentage. Okay, so it's 2.5. Take the square root of that. Okay. So that's 1.58 amps this thing can handle. Okay, so again, all my potentiometers, that both the ones I had from Allied, are all, they don't tell you what the wattage is at all. They all have current marked on them. One of them was like 3.5 amps, because these are high wattage resistors technically. But anyway, they had current marked on them, and that's how all potentiometers, like I said, should be rated. At any rate, this is 1.58 amps, and we'll multiply that by 10 ohms to get our voltage. So at 15 volts, you're going to max this thing out. But again, it doesn't matter if you got this set at 1 ohm, you still can't put more than 1.58 amps through it. You will fry it. And the reason is, you know, this is what I was going to get to earlier, if they, you know, bring the one up with the windings picture on it. The reason is that, you know, like right now here, you know, let's say you were, you know, your load was connected across this terminal here and this terminal here. Well, that means you only have this number of windings actually supplying the power. So that's why, I mean, this wire has a current limit rating. You can just think of it that way. And all potentiometers work that way, even though usually the smaller pots, like the 5-watt ones, oftentimes don't use wire windings. I think sometimes they do, but they do have smaller wire round pots out there. But a lot of the pots, like half-watt pots, they use a resistive strip, but you know, but still the principle's the same, you know, because, you know, you're still only using, like in this case, you know, right now they got it set at 500 ohms for this 1000 ohm resistor, but you still can't get more than that 158 milliamps out of it. You know, and in the 10-watt case, you know, you couldn't get more than, you know, that 1.58 amps out of it, because you're using that much less of the coil. If you had this wiper turned all the way over here, you know, then you have the whole wire actually dissipating power, but still at 1.58 amps. And that's the only time you get 25 watts is if you have this thing turned up to full resistance. Okay, here, you know, your effective wattage is going to be way lower, you know, just because, hell, you cut the amount of resistance in half. So, you know, basically, you know, I'd have to do the calculation again, but let's say 0.158 amps is what we know, okay, but we got it set at 500 ohms, so, you know, that means we got 79 volts across this potentiometer to get that out of it, and times 0.158 amps, you know, equals 12 watts. So just like you would think, guess what? You know, if we got the resistance set in half, your wattage is also cut in half. So you got, you know, you turned a 25 watt pot into a 12 watt pot, and that's why these goddamn things should not be rated in fucking wattage. They should be rated in current, because they all have, I don't care if you're talking about a little trimmer pot on a circuit board, you know, it's rated a you know, 20th of a watt, it's still going to follow these rules. And you got to watch that even with circuit board mounted pots, because it's easy to overload them if you're not careful. So, you know, and you're usually better off when it comes to potentiometers, you know, buying these multi-turn pots, because they are often half-watt pots, if I can fucking find any of them. But even from Amazon, they're usually half-watt pots, these kind right here. They're like usually 10-turn pots, you know, but you can see what these kind of look like. They're usually half-watt rated, so say rated power half-watt. So whenever you see these, you know, they are 10-turn pots, so that they're kind of precision, which that alone is good, you know. So they have a lot of, you know, but they do have more power than most of the, you know, PC pots that you see that are single turn. Let's see if these guys will tell you the truth. You know, when you buy pots like these are usually 8th watt or 10th watt, by the way. You know, they're panel mount. That's why I'm saying, you know, you gotta be a little careful with what you're thinking, because almost all the panel mount potentiometers on Jamico, that especially ones that look like they're good price, are really only 8th watt to 10th watt at best. If they'll tell you, let's see if they tell you what their wattage is. They probably won't, so you got to actually just use your best guess most of the time. Sometimes you'll see them in user reviews saying, this thing's blew up on me, it's only a 10th watt, or something like that. I mean, you'll see people complaining about it sometimes if you read the reviews. But at any rate, you know, the point is that that's why, be careful. Just always assume when you buy these kind of potentiometers on Amazon that they're only 10th watt or so. Just don't assume anything less unless they deliberately say that there are more. And even then, I don't know how much you could trust them, but you know. But at any rate, I'm off topic again. See, a pot like these, you know, these are little single turn pots, right? You know, they're very common little trimmer pots, but they're single turn and, you know, rated power 0.1 watt. At least they told you the power here. So they're not rated nearly as well as those other multi-turn pots are. And those other multi-turn pots actually take up less circuit board space typically than these are, so they have a better footprint. So, and they're higher power and they're multi-turn. So my advice is only use those other ones. The other thing about these that sucks, okay, and you know, these are better than the ones you used to see back in the 70s and 80s, but you know, because they're semi-sealed pots, but you know, that's what's good about the other pots. Because see, these are more or less what they call open frame pots, and you can see on the bottom that they are. Let's see if we can get a better shot right here. You know, you see the bottom of that, you know, that tells you these are basically open frame pots, and what that means is they're going to degrade heavily with age. You know, you get environmental contaminants, you know, smoke, you know, and just simple weathering, you know, particularly if it's used outdoors, but even indoors, I mean, humidity and stuff like that takes their toll on them. So these are better quality than what you used to find. I don't even know if you could buy those pieces of shit anymore, but yeah, they used to have them. You'll see them on some old circuit boards. You know, if you take some old equipment apart, you know, they'll have those little ones that don't even have a plastic case around them. I mean, they're just, you know, they have like a little plastic knob on them, just like these kind of do, but, you know, but they don't really have any kind of case around them at all. Those are really open frame. Those are pieces of shit. Never touch those. You know, these aren't half bad. There are times when you want them, but again, if you got a choice, you're better off with these others like these. But again, those same power rules apply. Okay, now that I've covered that subject, I want to cover voltage rating on resistors. I'm wondering if I should, at this point, if I should do that in another video, but it does relate to power. Okay, I showed you earlier. Not this. Wish I could afford that. But I showed you earlier, you know, to the power resistors, right? And one thing a lot of people don't realize when it comes to resistors is that they all have voltage ratings to them. And you'll see by the end of what I'm about to say, you know, that is relevant for power. And damn it. Okay. Now, let's see. You know, usually a lot of these voltage ratings aren't specified. Sometimes you get lucky and find them. See, voltage rating NA, you know. If you go to Mauser, you may be able to find what the voltage rating on some of these power resistors are and the regular resistors, but it is very applicable if you're doing anything with high voltage. Now, usually, and you can look these up for rules of thumb on the internet, you know, some of these power resistors, you know, they're all wire wound, okay, so voltage can jump from terminal to terminal, you know, or from rung to rung on that wire wound, because they actually literally have wire wound around a core in these resistors. That's why it's called a wire wound cement type resistor. But, you know, as a result, if the voltage is high enough, it can arc, you know, from rung to rung, because it's like a coil, and I imagine this has quite a bit of inductance and capacitance because of that too. But the fact of the matter is, it can definitely easily arc, you know, even over a fairly long resistor. Now these resistors tend to be a little higher rated, in my experience and research, you know, than regular resistors. You know, these tend to, oftentimes, and do your own research by all means, you can expect maybe 700 volts or so out of them. But I mean, if you're doing a lot of work, with high voltage stuff, like Mazzilli drivers driving, flyback transformers or Tesla coils or, you know, MOTS, microwave oven transformers, that kind of thing, or just building your own power supplies, um, you know, it can become a real issue. So, having a proper voltage, because even a regular, like quarter watt, through hole resistor, might just be rated at 200 or 300 volts. You got to look into that. And a half watt usually will be around 400 or 500 volts, but 400 to be safe. For an average half watt, metal film or carbon film resistor. But you got to take those into account, and you can string them together to get higher voltage. Like if I took, two 1K resistors that had, were half watt rated at 400, let's just say 400 volts apiece. I can string three of them together and, get 3K at, like 1200 volts. All right, you can do that. It's a little risky, but usually, if you want higher value resistors, you should consider buying, actual high voltage resistors. Um, and you can see right here, this is on Mauser. Um, I made sure they're in stock, and I just entered it as a search term. High voltage resistors. That I chose thick film. Because that's one of the options they had. They had other options too, but just look around on their site for high voltage resistors, because you can specify the voltage on these things. Got power rating, tolerance, minimum operating temperature, max op temp, and voltage rating here. So these are the voltage ratings, and these you can specify. So you can go way all the way up to 50 kilovolts, and as low as 600 volts, which and you can specify whether they're axial or radial, and whether they're through hole on most of the resistors, or surface mount. I chose, let's see, yeah, I chose through hole as one of the filters, so that column's been removed. But so these are all through hole resistors, but I got them sort of priced low to high. So, and unlike Amazon, their low to high price sorter actually works. It'll actually give you all the components in low price to high price order. On Jamico it works too. But Amazon likes to waste your fucking time, so they remove most of the selections if you try to do a price low to high sort. So you go from having like 2,000 results to having like 20 if you sort from price low to high. That's the kind of bullshit Amazon does. Federal Trade Commission needs to have a look at that. But at any rate, sorry about the little rant there. But I got to, these aren't too expensive, is what I'm saying. If you look at it, again, it depends on what value you're looking at. This is 100 mega ohms. You got 10, mega ohms down here, and 500 mega ohms. But you can see what the voltage rating is there: 2 kilovolts, or 7 kilovolts, 2 kilovolts, 7 kilovolts, 9 kilovolts, etc. And the prices aren't that bad, and they do give you some volume discounts here, so you save a little money if you want to buy. And usually on resistors, you might want to buy 10s. You can buy them singly. And sometimes you'll find extreme price breaks if you buy 10 on some of their selections. But you better buy these really quick, because I got LCs on them, which means they're about to stop carrying them once they run out of inventory. So you can see how many they have in stock. So verify status with factory. When it's got warnings like that on it, you better pay attention. These are just thick film resistors. Let's see what these are rated, because boy, they're expensive for being what they are, aren't they? 100K. Wow, 10 kilovolts. I find that hard to believe. There's no fucking way these resistors are going to put up with 10 kilovolts. There's no fucking way. I mean, I guess they might if they're big enough, but I have a feeling this is the wrong picture, but, you know, maybe not, but these 10 kilovolts won't arc that far, but boy, that's bizarre to see a 10 kilovolt resistor that small. I mean, look at this one. That's 3.6 kilovolt, you know, but hell, it's much larger, right? Much longer, which is what you expect out of a high voltage resistor. But anyway, I'm just saying, you know, the resistor values aren't too, you know, their prices aren't too bad, you know, depending on what you're looking for. But you can go up here and, you know, sort by, of course, the actual resistor value you're looking for. So you can kind of see what the range is. You know, they have these tolerance limits. This 20. I'm sure these cost a fortune. Let's see what let's see what the high side pricing looks like. Okay, so these can run you $100 a piece. You know, so because they you know, they have 151 different parts in stock, so they can run as much as $100 a piece. But you know, you got to be really like filthy rich to, you know, buy some of those things. But you know, let's see. Power rating, you know, can go up to, you know, these different power ratings, you know, up to 11 watts, and so 2 watts, 1 watt. So you can take your pick. You know, if you choose like a 2-watt resistor, we've got 21 different parts available at these tolerances and these resistances. So you know, you can buy them in generally only 1 mega ohm and above, you know, if you're looking for that wattage rating. You know, for 1 watt, you know, you got more selections. You can go down to 2.5K, even 1 ohm, apparently. My God, you got to be dealing with a lot of code. That doesn't even make sense. So they actually have 1 ohm resistors. What's the voltage rating on that? I mean, I've got to see that. See, where's the, oh, I don't know. Let's see, where is the voltage? Okay, voltage ratings right here. 20 kilovolts, 3 watts. Really? How are you gonna put 20 kilovolts across a 1 ohm resistor and only get 3 watts out of it? I'm not really sure how that works. I guess that makes sense if you're using it in addition to some other resistor and you just want to feel safe. But my God, there's no fucking way. You know, 20 kilovolts, I mean, that'd be 20 kiloamps, you know, and that's going to be 20,000 watts, not 3 watts. But at any rate, that actually dovetails into what I'm going to talk about next and the point that I'm bringing this up with and on this subject for. And that's that if you buy a power resistor, you know, you can see that, you know, there are a lot of different values, right? And, you know, you may be thinking, you know, like, okay, this value, and I'm not going to bother with it. I'm just going to use my calculator here so I can do this faster. You know, let's say you've got, let me go back here and see what kind of resistor values they have first. Come on, where's the power? Okay, Jamico could use some work on this. Okay, so 10 watt resistors, you know, you got 5 ohm, 100 ohm. Let's see how many values did it return. 6 results. Okay, 50 ohm, 1K, you know, 2 ohms. They don't have much of a selection here at 10 watts. But let's say, you know, and you can find them, trust me, that, let's see, we got, you know, because you know, like 1K is the largest resistor they have, right? So let me do some research before I get back to you on that. All right. Yeah. So if you're looking for power resistors, like I said, you know, Mauser here, you know, is a pretty good place to look. And what's really cool, I just noticed this, that they actually do have voltage ratings too out there available. Although that may not apply to every resistor they have, but you know, they do actually have it so you can select by voltage ratings on um, typical power resistors. What the hell were the pictures all at? Seriously? Piece of crap. But yeah, their prices aren't terrible, especially if you're looking for something specific. But I hate it when they do that. Don't have pictures of their stuff. But you can get resistors that range from milliohms all the way up to 20 kiloohms. But believe me, I've seen higher power resistors. I mean higher voltage resistor. I mean higher resistance. Higher power rated power resistors before, like 500K for example. So if you took like a 500K power resistor, 10 watts, you think, well, that long thing, that should be able to take plenty of voltage. Well, let's see, if you do come across a 500K 10 watt resistor, it's 10 divided by 500,000, okay, take the square root of that, okay, that's about 4.4 milliamps of current tops that the resistor can handle, and you multiply that times 500,000 to give you the voltage across it. Well, that's 2.23 kilovolts. Well, the thing is, none of these resistors are, these cement type power resistors are ever going to go to 2.2 kilovolts. So it makes you wonder, because again, this has happened to me before. I was looking at the voltage, trying to figure out how to get, high voltage power resistors, and I was like, well, shouldn't I be able to use these big long things? I'm sure they're rated at a lot of voltage. Well, as it turns out, especially at the higher resistance values, no. I mean, they're still only, on average, 750 volts, for a 10 watt resistor. So, yeah, you're going to be in trouble if you try to use that up to full power. Why have a 10 watt resistor that you can't actually get 10 watts out of? Because the only way you're going to get 10 watts out of it is to put 2.2 kilovolts across it. Well, it can't take that. It's only a 750 volt resistor. So what a bunch of bullshit that was, I was thinking, because there were several resistors back when I was, this is several years ago, when I was looking into that for a project I had. I needed higher voltage. So, I was thinking, well, those power resistors might be a good choice because those are nice and long. So, but no, their voltage isn't as high sometimes as their power rating, because I need to, I was going to do a high voltage multimeter or something. But anyway, I was looking for resistors. That's before I came across these high voltage resistors we were looking at earlier. So, but my point is that sometimes power can get you even on power resistors, and it relates to can it actually handle the rated voltage or not. So it's something you might want to be careful of if you're thinking about using them in high voltage applications for some reason. But just always assume that regular cement round resistors are going to be of the lower voltage type. Probably higher voltage than like your half watt carbon film resistors are, but but still not as high as you may expect sometimes. So it's just something to be aware of. So, especially if you're going to be dealing with voltages in excess of 750. And it doesn't really even have to be for Tesla coil high voltage stuff. You might just be dealing with a kilovolt or so, or a couple of kilovolts for a bug zapper or something you might want to be building. So anyway, or even for like a neon or a xenon flash tube driver or something like that, it's going to be dealing with several kilovolts. So, but at any rate, it's just something to to be aware of. So, that's pretty much my 2 cents worth. Again, damn it, this video went way longer and became way more off track than I wanted it to be, but but it really does cover a lot more ground than I expected to cover. But it's going to be very educational for you, because these things can really kick your ass, particularly on pots, and you can see how expensive some of those pots can be. those panel mount potentiometers in particular. I mean, yeah, you could be blowing those left and right, but you could even blow, you know, Oh, and yeah, another topic he said that he was talking about in his article, had to do with, with how resistors fail. And I can tell you, especially with metal film resistors, but most resistors, when they fail, you overheat them, the resistance value decreases. So, I mean, eventually they're going to fail catastrophically. And they will do it. I mean, they can actually catch your shit on fire. If you're running them at too high of a wattage, I mean, but the resistance, even if you're starting with 1K and you overload it, it's running at much higher than rated temperatures for an extended period of time. Yeah, you come, you run it like double the power for like a day. You come back and measure that thing. Well, you're going to say, well, why does this 1K resistor down to 200 ohms? It's because it's been overheated for an extended period of time, and that's what they tend to do. They tend to lose resistance when they do that. So that can get you into some real trouble, and it can start fires. That was a big issue, for me, and some products I used to have. You used to have to really look at that. What would happen if these things failed? Would it catch this flammable plastic on fire? That it was near. How big of a fire risk was it? So, because you couldn't get that plastic in 94 VO rated, or at least not easily. It was a polyethylene plastic, and polyethylene, whenever that catches on fire, that literally is like napalm. It will run, it turns to water. Anytime any kind of polyethylene, even if it's, PEX or anything like that, I think will do the same thing, and UHMW I know will. So, if that catches on fire, it literally will run everywhere. I mean, it turns into water, basically. It's flaming water. So, it will flow just like water, and it will but it'll catch on fire. It won't just wet your carpet. It'll spread everywhere just like water will, and including splatter. Okay, and you'll have little splatters, catching everything else on fire. I mean, you really got to watch that shit, when it comes to certain plastics. If you're worried about flammability in plastics, use PVC. PVC, by its very nature, is 94 VO rated. So it's more or less, I don't want to use the term, fireproof, but, because it can burn and melt, and it releases, hydrochloric acid when it does, but it usually will not catch on fire or sustain a flame. So if you're worried about fire, use PVC. That's why I wish 3D printers would print in PVC, but it's hard to do because of charring. But anyway, I didn't mean to get off topic, but anyway, that should cover the subject pretty well. So cheers.